The pictures and stories from Studio Ghibli have indeed given us a lasting impression. Have you ever heard of the phrase, the moral of the story is? Well, when it comes to anime and maybe even films in general, no one is better at giving you one to think about than Hayao Miyazaki. Today's tale takes us on a wild, wild ride as a young girl by the name of Chihiro takes a ride with her parents where they stumble across an abandoned amusement park. But what they really found was a world of gods and spirits. Her parents are suddenly turned into pigs by the evil witch Yababa, and Chihiro quickly learns that it is a resort for supernatural beings. She is forced to work in the bathhouse in order to save her parents. With the tagging along from a mysterious no-face creature, will she be able to save her parents, or will she be engulfed into the underground world as she knows it? Tonight, we do a discussion of sorts on the very first anime film to win an animated film Oscar. The 12th film from Studio Ghibli. It is no other than Spirited Away. This is a Comic Talkers production, and you were listening to a If You Completely Forget, You'll Never Find Your Way Home edition of Just Four Flicks. It's your boy, Patty B. Sorry, it's your boy, Patty B.
You sound like Mr. Kennedy there. Mr. Kennedy.
Stop!
Hey!
Patty B. And with me, as always, is Mr. B Dog, Mr. Brandon. What's going on, man? How we doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm excited because I know I always say I'm excited.
We're
Uh,
always excited. We're
I
just
know I
excited to be
am. I
here
know I'm
talking.
all psyched up. But no, I'm excited because this is one of my favorite anime films of all time. Well deserving of an Oscar win. We are going over the movie Spirited Away.
Mhm.
Now, Pat, I have to ask because I know you are not familiar with animated films, and I take it as this was really kind of your first time watching this film.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about prep, prepping for the episode, I had watched this movie probably for the first time about 2 years ago. And I since then I've watched it about 5 to 10 times just because I do have a toddler. So if you show him something animated, he'll definitely have his attention for the first 10 minutes. So, I got that going for me. This was a movie as far as like a takeaway when I watched it for the first time. I wish it was something I watched when I was younger because I think I would have been able to appreciate it a little bit more or maybe have a different appreciation for it. Because you know how like when you watch a movie when you're a kid, you interpret it differently
Yeah.
than how you watch it when you're older. I just think this movie obviously has a lot of deeper meanings, and we'll get into that later on throughout the episode. But
Wait.
I just think I don't know if I didn't do myself a disservice. I just wish that I had the chance to watch this when I was younger, if that makes sense. Because I mean, I'm assuming you yourself, you probably saw this at a way younger age than when I saw it for the first time, right?
Yeah. So this was released in 2003 to the United States, which we'll get into that here soon too, because this movie was out before in 2001. US didn't get access to it to about 2003.
Which is wild because it won the Oscar in '02, right?
Yeah.
You're saying it won the Oscar, but then like you weren't able to like unless I mean I guess back then there was a lot of DVD trading going on, so you probably could have got a copy of it. Or I guess you had the LimeWire days. I don't you were able to find a movie then. But yeah, I just don't know how.
Well, it, I was about 8 years old when I first watched this for the first time. It is it so for me, this was like a movie I watched, I want to say when I got a little older, about 13, 14. But then I didn't watch it till about here. I remember really enjoying the film because I remember the animation style,
I mean, it's like the characters in this movie are like one of a kind characters, right?
Yeah.
It's like just the way of how they were created. I mean, one that really sticks out for me is like Kamaji, having like that spider appearance, which freaks me out by the way, but
You
I
would
still
think of somebody like Guillermo del Toro doing something like that, but you don't think somebody
yeah,
like
it just
Miyazaki.
I think there's just so many different spectrums to this movie, and it just kind of he makes it work. But it's just a lot of for the time that this movie came out, and that's another thing I just wish. I mean, with the time this movie came out, I was probably 6 or 7. I mean, theoretically, by the time it came out to the United States, I was more like 8 or 9. But I just feel like I don't know, man. I just feel like there's just this movie has a lot of adult undertones to it. I mean, compared to your normal kids movie. I mean, because Studio Ghibli tends to lean more towards a kid audience, so to speak. I know you got Grave with the Fireflies is obviously different, but I know Kiki's Delivery Service when I was a kid, I kind of grew up on that. That was, I mean, they showed us that in school.
Yeah.
My Neighbor Totoro's another one. Howl's Moving Castle's another one.
Castle in the Sky,
Onyo, yeah. So
was another good one.
yeah, yeah.
That's what I said. But even with this, it's really good. Now, mind you, let's talk about a couple points before we get into the meat and potatoes of this lesson, right? This was the second movie to ever win Best Animated Feature. Now, mind you, we've already talked about Shrek, which was the first to ever win it. This was the second, and it beat out movies like Ice Age, Lilo and Stitch,
Mhm.
Spirit, and Treasure Planet.
I think that's one that I got confused on too. I remember Spirit when I was a kid. So when people would say like, "Oh, you ever seen Spirited Away?" I would think, "You mean
Spirit.
Spirit?" Like
This horse lady?
Spirited Away. Like I'm thinking of the same movie with the horse.
I
Yeah.
can see you now be like in this movie. There's no horses in here.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like I was always confused about that. And when I was a kid, I didn't even know what anime was. Like I didn't know really about anime until I was probably more like in middle school. So I just because a lot of kids that I went to school with were into anime, and you'd see them with magazines and just I there's a couple of friends I knew that actually were really good artists, and some of them would draw like anime characters and stuff
Mhm.
like that. So
Well, like
yeah,
even
I mean, I was just kind of sheltered in that spectrum of things.
even then, like for me, it's kind of the same thing. I knew about it in middle school and high school, and never got into it. It wasn't until I met Ty that he was really the one that got me into getting into that. And Ty's been on the podcast before. He's been on our Kira episode. He's been on our Shrek episode. He's been on a few episodes with us, and he's my co-host on one of my co-hosts on Comic Talkers. So it's for me to get through it and understand it more, it gave me more of an appreciation for the arts. And Ghibli was really the first like exposure I had to it. But even watching this movie, sometimes you don't even realize, like, I know it's anime, but sometimes it doesn't feel like that. Sometimes it just feels like a normal animated film. You don't feel that way with an anime film. But but to bring up Miyazaki again, Miyazaki actually considered retiring after completing Princess Mononoke, which was in 1997.
Okay. So this was the next project before. So I wonder with how much work goes into these movies with all the artwork and stuff like that. Do you think he has these concepts created years prior to the actual movie? Do you think he had like the ideas to Spirit Away while he was making like Kiki's Delivery Service or what? I know Kiki's was kind of like is that late eight? That's late 80s, right?
That's 89. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I knew it was before 90.
But
Yeah.
here's the thing, and I'm glad you brought this point up because this is actually one of my other points I wanted to bring up. He was inspired to make this film because of seeing his friend's stolen 10-year-old daughter.
Hmm.
So sometimes his inspirations come, and this is another point I want to bring up. Even though you would think he comes up with ideas and everything, this movie was not made with a script.
Oh, really?
Miyazaki's films never had scripts during their production. And according to what he has stated, I don't have the story finished and ready when we start working on the film. I usually don't have the time, so the story develops when I start drawing storyboards. The production starts soon while the storyboards are still developing.
Okay.
So sometimes it just comes organically, but also too, like even then, it's like the river spirit, which we'll talk about later in this film, was based on a real life incident of Hayao Miyazaki's life.
Mhm.
You know, so having those moments, it's just more, just kind of spur of the moments.
Yeah. And that's the nice thing about writing stuff like that is sometimes you do just get simple ideas like from life experiences and they're able to certain people are just able to throw it into their movies. I mean, you get that with a lot of different directors, right? There's always these themes to that different directors put throughout their movies. I mean, it's all from experiences, right?
Well, like even another good point to bring up too, and I've always talked about this with anime or animation. I love when, or even in comics, I love when art tells the story.
Yes. Yeah.
And when
You're
you
able to you're able to interpret the story in a different way and explain it in a different way, right? I mean,
right.
interpret.
Well,
That's the
like,
thing, I guess.
I did a while back, I did an interview with a comic book writer and an artist named Melissa Payuka, who it's her art style is what tells the story.
Mhm.
Very little dialogue in the book, but when it comes across, it's powerful. And that art just tells the story. And every time Studio Ghibli puts out a film, that art you can tell is put more in detail than others.
Mhm.
And Spirited Away is no different. Like when I watch this film, it's more stunning. It's more colors. Like if anything was like, I always say, some of these movies can be made into live action. Do I want this to be made into live action? Absolutely not. It works the way it is. But if I saw this as a movie perfectly, I would say give it to Wes Anderson. Let him roll with it
Give it away. Yeah.
because of the colors, the way it's filmed, everything. I think he could pull it off.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying he has some of that visual background, but it's not.
Hmm.
It's something he could do. But let's go into some of the details. Like we said, it was released in 2001, but in the United States, it was not released to 2003. It was directed by Hayao Miyazaki. A synopsis: during her family's move to the suburbs, a sullen 10-year-old girl wanders into a world ruled by gods, witches, and spirits, and where humans are changed into beasts. The budget for this film, Pat, how much do you think the budget was?
Uh, can I get a hint, or is it higher than normal?
It's in millions. I'm going to put it that way.
Well, obviously, I wasn't going to be like, yeah, it's $200,000.
No,
Um, I'm gonna go
real
ahead.
one, Bob. $1,
I'm
Bob.
gonna go ahead and say it probably the time that it came out, it probably costs like $20 million.
You're not that bad. You're not that far off.
Really, really, really.
19 million estimated.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I'm just
Now,
thinking like with the timing, because I mean, if this were like 10 years prior, it probably would have been like half that, maybe a little bit lower.
yeah, that's what I said. But here's the catch to this. How much do you think it made worldwide? Before I go into a pretty significant part of this.
I mean, I would say something north of 100 probably like between 150 and 200 million
More.
more. Yeah. I had a feeling I was gonna undershoot that a little bit.
Roughly, it's about 359 million.
Gee.
Now, here's the unique part of this. This is the first film turned over $200 million US dollar in grosses before opening in the United States. So most of this was international market,
Got
which
it.
is pretty significant when you really think about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this movie was released. I mean, yeah, probably killed it over in Japan and even Europe. I could see this being a big hit in Europe.
Yeah, like this film is just an amazing film. When you really look at it, Ghibli has never there's been a couple duds by Ghibli, but not to the extreme point of oh no, but nobody cares about it, or oh, it's just here, or it's this, or it's that.
Would you consider My Neighbor Totoro a dud? One of those duds?
Personally, in my opinion, I don't see the hype for it. But
Yeah.
again, I also have to understand it's not made for me. It's made for
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
As a kid, I probably would have enjoyed it, but not watching it till I was an adult, because that was one of the only ones I always put off to watch. Because I don't know why, it just never interests me. And it wasn't until about a couple years ago I watched that for the first time, and I just went,
I think that's probably why I gravitate more towards Kiki's because that's also very kid that holds up a little bit too because that's like one of their first movies, isn't it?
well, it is and it isn't, because you gotta
Yeah.
remember Totoro was before, and
Oh,
all that was
yes.
Totoro
I
was before
forget.
that.
I always think that Totoro's like a mid '90s movie, but it's
Nope. Totoro was 88. It was came out the same year as Akira did.
two
Put it
different
in
movies.
perspective. Well, that's why I said, like, if that, like, you imagine those two would have probably dominated that animated film category if this was an award back.
Like here's the one for kids, and then adults can
Here's
go.
one for adults, where you're gonna sit there and think you're on an acid trip. No, I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
for real, dude. Oh, I can only. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's wild. That's wild to even think about.
But it's still, let's go into what you liked, Pat. What are things that you liked about this film? I'm more curious about to see, because you didn't watch this till just about a few years ago. For me,
Yeah,
it's like a kid.
I love the visuals. Obviously, the visuals, and we've talked about it, before or earlier. But I think just the artwork is so well done, and he does it so well. And like you just alluded to a few minutes ago, it's like people are able to express themselves through the art. They don't even really have to add dialogue
Yeah,
into it. This movie obviously dialogue helps, and there's just a lot of moving pieces within this film, and that's another thing I love about it is how many moving pieces with all the different characters,
yeah.
and with the characters, and I probably briefly touched on this earlier, but I just love the creation of the characters. Like with Yubaba and Zaniba, how they I think I was telling you off the air is how I felt more or I always would get confused with the Yubaba and Zaniba characters because they're sisters, right? They're twin sisters.
And I think that's what I think I was talking about before. So when Zaniba comes into the picture, that was kind of one of the things I think I talked to you about off air. Is I felt like they could have did something totally different, because when you see her for the first time, you think she's just as bad as her sister, you know. But in reality, when you get to the ending of the film, you
She's
actually
kind
see she's
of nice
actually a good
she's a
natured
nice
person.
version of her sister, right?
Yeah, it's like she's a good natured version. Like she actually
Well,
cares
and
about
that's
people.
the thing I would get confused about with this movie is when it's def okay, so this movie, folks, is a movie, it's like any movie. You should definitely pay attention. Like, this is a movie you kind of have to like watch all the way through because there's just a lot of stuff you'll miss
Yep.
if you're on your phone or if you're tuned out for a few minutes because that's one mistake I made with this the first time around. Was especially in that, and it's with these two sisters where I got a little confused. I'm like, wait, wasn't the other one like kind of bad towards Chihiro, and then now this one like now I was thinking it was the same lady essentially. You know what I mean? And I was like, why is this lady like back and forth, or why is her demeanor seem so like back and forth?
Well, that's the thing, is like if you get lost in that, that's why, what, like at that end, that's when you kind of get that sense of, okay, you have the good sister and the bad sister. You have the one that it's all about greed and money and all that, and you have the one that's good nature and
Yeah.
isolated because that's not who she is. And like it's just a really, like, I love when Zaniba comes in, because you have that scene of she's changing everybody up. So she changes the baby into a mouse. She changes the little vulture into a little gnat, bug thing, and then changes the three heads that's walking around into the baby. So it was like just the way they come across it is just like it was really the two there were really good. I want to talk about Chihiro.
Mm.
Now, Chihiro is, of course, the main character of the film, but the thing is, she is such a powerful character.
I like the last name too. Her last name's Ogino. I think
Hmm.
that's how you pronounce it. I love that.
Well,
Chihiro Ogino.
yeah, cheer, like you see a whole 180 with her.
Yeah.
She comes from being cautious, being like she does,
Spoiled. Kind of
yeah,
spoiled almost.
but
Yeah.
like I wouldn't say so much spoiled, but she's not used to change. Like she doesn't like change, and you can see that through the whole thing.
Coddled.
Yeah, yeah, coddled. There you go. That's a good way to put it. But over this whole movie, when you see the parents get changed into pigs, you see all that. Now she's got to learn to defend for herself, but not only that, find a way to save her parents. So it's a sense of now having to, in some ways, grow up and start realizing that now there's other things you have to take into consideration. There's people's lives at stake. There's all this at stake. And now it's up to her to be the person that's going to save everything. She is such a powerful character throughout. And
Yeah.
when you see her with Haku for the first time, and like Haku was just like, stay calm, don't breathe, don't do all this. Like he's teaching her, you are now having to stand on your own.
Yeah.
It's not a choice now. And it's such a great scene. Like I love the scene where she starts to fade because she's not from their world. And Haku comes up and says, here, eat this because if you don't eat food, you will disappear. And so she eats it and she's fine. But then the whole time she's like, I don't want to go by myself. I don't want to do this. Like she's just so not used to change. And she is so scared because she, like you said, somewhat coddled throughout her whole life. Now she has to find a way to fend for herself. And it's a really good growing of age story throughout this, and like just seeing how she grows to care for Haku. She grows to care for Lin, which I love Lin in this film. Lin is one of my favorite characters. Always tends to make me laugh because you can see like again another woman who can hold it on her own if need to be. But her character throughout is just really well done. Like even when she tells No Face, what was it? If you put a hand on her, you're gonna raise the wrath of me. I'm like, do you not see what No Face has done through the bath?
Yeah.
The bathhouse. Like I wouldn't worry about that part. Like he'll get you before you get him. You know. But I want to talk about too. What's your well before we get to the next part? What do you think about Chihiro? What's your take on
No, I think you kind of hit it right on the head with Chihiro. Like she has really good character development throughout the movie. I think, more so than a lot of other people. I mean, I think she's obviously the main character. She gets guided from other characters, and I think that's the beautiful part about it. It's like I was thinking about this when we were prepping for this movie. I got a very big vibe of another movie. It actually came out because what this is early to yeah. So this movie that I'm thinking of, and I will pull up the title. I will not spoil it because I know who's in it, and if I say who's in it, Brandon's gonna know exactly what movie I'm referring to. So let me pull that up real quick. But no, I just love her character development throughout this film. Like coming from the coddled to having a different meaning on what everything means to her in life, right?
it? Right.
So sorry, folks. I know
Is it a movie that I have seen? Let me ask you that.
I would hope so. I mean, this is a fantasy movie from the mid '80s. The storyline, I think, is what
Are you
kind of.
talking about the never ending story?
Oh, I'm talking about Labyrinth with David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly.
Oh yeah. I could see you. I could see
Yeah, it just I mean, think about it. I think the girl is looking for her infant brother who gets stolen from an evil goddess or the labyrinth.
yeah.
So and then she's put on this path of having to go into this fantasy world and find. It's kind of like Hook. Not really. No, that's
Girl,
that's
good.
that's completely different.
Yeah, like how dare
That's
you?
how I know, right? It's like one of my favorite movies of all time. I
How
just
dare you, Pat?
No, but I think honestly, if you watch Labyrinth and then watch this, you're like, holy shit, it's very similar.
I can see where you get the reference from.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's copying the
Yeah.
movie like scene to scene. Like, no, not at all. I just think it's loosely similar, if that makes
Well,
sense.
well, like I want to bring up another point about Chihiro before we get into it. It's like we said, she's nervous and going into this life because she doesn't have that support system. She doesn't have that. But it's a sense of too, it's just the anxieties of life. Like I think that's why I relate to her so much because I we all have those. We all when we grow from being a teenager to an adult, we have those moments of we're not ready for life. We're not ready for all this. And pretty much it's now you rely on what your family has taught you over the years to be able to go and support yourself. And with hers, she's got to find a way on her own. She's got to do things differently. She has to protect the one she loves, and she has to be willing to try to do whatever she can to care about the ones she loves. And like she's just like I said, with her and Aku, I think is great scenes. Every
Yeah.
time we see her and him together, I think it's just really well done. And like one of the scenes like always stands out to me is how she took on that big kind of like mud monster of spirit, and then you find out that's not who it is, and it's one of the river spirits.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
you get all the gold, but not only that, you get the medicine ball, which or like the medicine little ball that she gets, and she uses throughout the film on a couple people, and it's just like seeing her through that film and how or that scene and seeing how she's doing that all on her own is really well done. It kind of showed you like her finally like maturing up to be willing to take on stuff like this and willing to step up. And then that's when you have the Aku scene where you find out he's been attacked and everything happened to him, and it's just it's a great she's a great character. Now I want to talk about Yubaba for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Kind of one of the main antagonists of the film.
For sure. If not the main antagonist.
Well, she is the main antagonist of the film.
Yeah, yeah. She is the bad guy. Let's point all the fingers at her.
What did you like about Yubaba? Or what did you
Well,
not like?
first off, I alluded to this earlier. I just love I can't get over the creation or the appearance of certain characters. Like you have the no face character, you have Kamaji, who is one of my favorites as far as appearance goes. But then yeah, Yubaba. It's like obviously we talked about Yubaba and Zaniba being very similar in look. Obviously they're sisters, but Yubaba seems like I get this like very malicious vibe, but I don't know, she seems malicious at times, but she also seems I don't know, like she might have a heart, but not.
Well, she's greedy, but
Yeah,
she only
very
will
greedy.
care about the things that she cares about, right? Because we see that with even the baby. But we
Yeah,
see,
yes, that's I think what I was thinking about too was that whole baby scene.
oh yeah, the baby, yeah. Well, I was like I said when he was turned into a mouse, that made me laugh so hard because you could see like he's kind of getting his own dose of reality a little bit that he's not going to be sugarcoated by mom. He's going to be having to face realities and in that short amount of time when he's a mouse
Hmm.
and turns back into the baby in front of her, you see how he's changed and how he views it. Like, mom, he didn't do anything wrong. Like you can't come at her like that. Let her go. Like you see her finally step up to you, mom.
Hmm.
Like you see a whole 180 with them. And but that's what I said with you, Baba, she represents greed. And when you really think about it too, it's also capitalism. It's also pretty much control of everything because she has like you even see that scene where it is with the mud monster that turns into the river spirit. How she's like, oh, I gotta take care of this. I gotta do this. I gotta do that. But she's very controlling about the things that she cares about. So like when you see her with the jewels and stuff up there when she gets a call like, hey, something doesn't seem right
Yeah.
It's it's a sense of like I kind of got that sense of Ebenezer Scrooge when you really see her sit there and just putting her jewels away, doing all that. But like you can sense like she's still like, well, she's out for herself because when you even have Chihiro
Yeah.
really go up there and ask for a job and demand a job, you can see like, well, this is what happens when people.
I think Yababa represents all the bad qualities in human beings. I think that's a perfect explanation for her character.
Well,
I don't know. I think it's like it's also there's like a dual nature of good and bad within her, you know what I mean?
well, I think that's why I said when you got to remember with Chihiro being the main person or the main focus of the film, all sides are going to point somewhere else of what she could be and what she couldn't be,
Hmm.
right? So this is kind of like this is what would happen if you go to greed, if you go to cap like controlling and all this. This is who you're going to become.
Yeah.
You know, you have no face, which by I want to talk about that scene too. One of my favorite scenes is the chase scene, and with
Mhm.
Yubaba and when No Face is chasing Chihiro, and Yubaba steps in the way like, oh, this is gonna end today, and does that whole Dragon Ball moment, and he just upchucks right on her. It was like that was like one of the funniest things I've seen in the film, because you just and it and she just like there. I was like, that was pretty funny. I give it a little props there. Like that was
Yeah.
pretty funny. And a dark moment like that, it was really good. And Yubaba really is good. And Zaniba, like we've talked about already, Zaniba being kind of the polar opposite of her. I wish they would have changed that when you first meet her a little bit because but you gotta remember you have Haku who stole her like her little pennant, like her little
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about. It's like a charm.
yeah, there you go. That's a better way to put it. But like having him steal that, that's why she attacked him. But they didn't like you heard her say that like that's why I'm chasing him because he took that from me.
Mhm.
Like, and I think this is a great way to go into No Face because No Face is
Yeah.
a huge part of this film.
Yeah, he's kind of like Chihiro's right-hand man, but not quite a right-hand man.
Well, I wouldn't say so much a right hand man, but you got to remember, like, when you really look at No Face, No Face represents something that I feel really comes close to home for Chihiro. It's loneliness and abandonment
Yeah.
and the consequences of seeking attention
Hmm.
and
Well,
validation.
it's a self-absorbing unit as well. I mean, spirit as well, so.
Well, it's like that's what you get to the whole sense of the monster scene when he's turning into a monster, right? It's that sense of greed and everything and that seek of him turning into a monster. It's that destructive behavior, right? It's the dangers of unchecked greed and loss of one true self.
Hmm.
And when No Face comes into the picture, which is by far one of the creepiest things I have ever seen in a movie like this, is you just see him just, he looks like a stalker. He's just standing outside looking in. And Chihiro leaves the window open, saying, hey, I'll leave it open for you, thinking he was a customer. And then he comes in and just starts rampaging. you know, he eats the frog and then he gets, oh yeah, and then he has the ability to talk. And then now he's turning all this. But you see the whole time he's after Sin or
Hmm.
Chihiro. And but then when you have him eat the little rock thing, that by far is probably one of the most creepy things I have ever seen in a studio. Well, like when you see him go on that rampage after Sin,
Hmm.
that was so like for Studio Ghibli to do something like that, I was really shocked. I didn't think they would pull that off. And it worked so perfectly how they did it. And but then you see like how he's able to come back to normal and he's able to just okay, I'm gonna go like just follow her and everything. But then you go to Zaniba's place and he's now feeling wanted. Like
Hmm.
he feels that acceptance. And having
Yeah,
that,
that's the point. That's the point of the film. Yeah, like he said, where he feels his acceptance. I know exactly what you're talking about with going to Zeniba's place. No, I think it's a very important character throughout this movie. I don't think you can have it's almost like you can't have Chihiro without no face.
well, it's a sense of too, it's like we said, it's like the type of person that wants to latch on to people
Hmm.
and but doesn't know this they like their own self. So in some ways, that's what Chihiro's doing the whole film is learning who she truly is.
I mean, essentially that's what the movie's about.
So No Face is kind of like pointing her in that direction. So it's kind of like a guide in some ways of what things could happen.
Yeah.
And it's No Face just being like, yeah, he's a very creepy character, and the design of him, like I remember when I was a kid, there was two scenes in this movie that always freaked me out. No Face being one of them, and the parents turning into pigs.
Yeah, that's a little concerning for sure.
That
Um,
was creepy.
I
Like,
think I think when I first saw Kamaji's character,
yeah.
that freaked me out too, and especially because it's you'd think a character that looks like that would be like a bad guy, and he's not really a bad guy. Um, so I
He's
don't know.
not a bad guy. I would trust him.
No, that's what I'm saying. I would think like just from the appearance of him or just the way like I don't know, it just looks not cool.
Well, like even him, he's the workhorse. He's the one that's what Haku sends Chihiro to say,
Yeah.
just ask him for a job. If he doesn't, just insist you want a job. And because you can sense like he trusts him. Like this is one of the only people that you're going to trust right now. And the fact that he helped her still. He didn't have to help her. And he still
Hmm.
does. That was one of my favorite scenes when they're all doing the coal, the little the suit sprites, right? The little things that are in there with him carrying the coal. And they all realize, oh, she can carry it. And then they kind of smush themselves and they're like, get back to work. You're gonna get turned back into soot. You know, it's to see how he's willing to help her through the whole film. Like, here, I'm gonna help you. Like, oh yeah, she's my granddaughter. She came here to visit.
Hmm.
He didn't have to do that.
Hmm.
But it also shows you he also symbolizes something too. Industry and progress. When you really look at the concept.
Yeah.
He's the workhorse. He's the guy that's always going to be doing things. When you really think about it, he's willing to maintain the bathhouse's operations, right? But not only that, he's willing to go outside the norm and defy the orders of what that stands for. And he does that with Chihiro. That the way he's willing to put himself out there to save her was big in the film. Haku and him were like two of the characters that really try to save him. And then you have Lin who comes in and it's like, okay, well, if you're going to fit in, you need to fit it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's kind of it's almost like an ultimatum,
like
right?
when you really look at Lin, and I think that would kind of be the next point we bring up. When you really look at Lin, you kind of see like an older self of Chihiro.
Hmm.
Like you have that sense of she's done this her whole life. She's done this this is what she could be.
Is there anything that you could like take away from this movie that you're not a big fan of? If you had to kind of critique it? I mean,
That's a good question. Like,
I mean, one for me, and this might just be like some people might agree, and a lot of people probably won't agree with this, but in my opinion, I find myself at times in this movie not being fully motivated, or it seems like there might be slow times of this movie.
it drags a little bit. I
But
agree there.
that being said, I think that kind of alludes to the fact where I believe it's a little too long. I don't think this movie should be over an hour and 45 minutes.
But to be
But
totally honest, Pat, like
yeah,
I'll be honest, watching it, I've never felt that way.
yeah.
I think like yeah, it comes off that there's some slow points, but everything has a purpose in the film.
Hmm.
Not once do I feel like I'm watching a 2-hour film.
No, no, I just think that there's parts where obviously, like you're saying, it drags. They do have some good parts that flow really well. I know you definitely, I would say within the first 10 minutes, you're definitely entertained. Like I know for sure, you know, how you give it that fifth, what I think we both have that
That
15 minute
15
rule.
minutes of
Yeah,
waiting.
yeah, I'll give it the 15-minute rule. Um, yeah, it definitely passes that. I just think there's times for sure where I look at my watch and I'm like, man, how long have I been watching this for? I think I did that recently with it, where I think I was watching it and you're enjoying parts of the movie, and this isn't taking away from the film itself. Like I just think personally that it's just a little too long for my tastes.
Like
What? Go ahead.
I really like to answer your question. I really don't. I think the only parts I've already kind of talked about with Yubaba and and their sister Zaniba, right?
Mhm.
Like Yubaba and Zaniba, I feel like when they introduced Zaniba, I wish they would have did things differently.
Yeah.
But you want me to tell you something else about Yubaba quick before we get into it? Is one of my favorite scenes with her, and it really capitalizes her greed, is when the baby's gone. And when Haku comes in there,
Yeah.
he's like, well, you don't have something that you really truly possess, like you something you prize to possess. And the first thing she goes to is the gold. She didn't even think about the baby.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden she realizes the baby is not who it is, and it's the three heads that's always pouncing around in their little penthouse, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So you realize that baby is not her first priority at that point. It's money. It's all that. Like Haku outsmarting her, and that was amazing. The like I think like the only thing is I wish the way when they introduced Zaniba, I think that was my only critique about the film.
Hmm.
Like, but not once did I ever feel like there should be anything changed about this film. It's a great film. There's really nothing about anything like that. Like, there's only really one character. Like, we've talked about Zanio, we've talked about No Face, we've talked about Yubaba, and we've talked about Lin. No, kind of the main characters, right? We haven't talked about one though, Haku. Haku being the first person that Chihiro meets when she enters this realm.
Hmm.
The first one that goes, here, I'm here to protect you.
He's very kind-hearted and like supportive, but also there's also like a part of him that's like a kind of strict or high-strung, so to speak.
Right. Agree.
Uh, I love the appearance of the dragon. I love how the dragon looks, by the way. The dragon's pretty badass.
Right. Well, that's why I said this film, it's just really well told. When you really
Yes.
look at the story with Haku, especially like Haku, I've never sat here and went, I don't like Haku, or I don't like this, or or anything about this movie. That's why when you asked that about what I thought about this, it's it's not that simple of a question.
What's that?
Like if there was anything I truly did not like about this film.
I think another thing, I guess I would just put it in the con pile. From an outside person that didn't grow up on anime, and I think for how, I mean, yeah, there are strange aspects to this movie, just with characters and the situations that it is, but this movie to me visually kind of feels at times like a bad dream, especially with just the randomness in it. I think then that kind of stems with the characters. I don't like it just because it kind of reminds me of having a nightmare when I'm a kid. I don't know. There's just certain parts to it that kind of freak me out. Now,
Okay.
me being a 30-year-old man, I'm obviously that's something. It
Well,
doesn't bother me, but I think it's just something I'm picking out of the pile. I can't tell. I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, oh, I hate this movie for this reason, or I don't like. No, I mean this movie is fantastic. I think everyone should check it out at some point. I just think it also gravitates to certain people, you know?
like I want to talk about this too quick because I feel like we haven't really talked about Haku enough. Haku, which we find out is the spirit, or what was it, the river spirit, or the Kohaku River. And we find out that's his real name, which was pretty unique when you really get that sense once you have that scene with Chihiro when Haku comes to Zeniba's place.
Hmm.
And after he's rescued, because we find out that he's been had a spell put on him. And the only way you can break it is by true love. And Zeniba, and at that point, you kind of get that sense of, well, that should have already worn off because if you really care about Haku, that should have already worn off. Having that sense of love and with him and her, it's like a sense of like it was a very powerful moment. But one of the things I want to bring up that I thought about this, it's kind of a symbol to nature. Now, this is not the first time Ghibli or Miyazaki has done this,
Yeah.
because we know that with Princess Mononoke. That was a huge part of environmental situation. But when you really look at the nature and everything in this, that environmental sense of this film with Haku is actually very important because, like we said, it's a symbol of natural world suffering. When you really look at the story with him, because when you have that reveal that he's a river and he's the spirit of a river, it's actually really powerful because it's that sense of like him forgetting his name too, and all that. It's that neglect. It's all that like the neglect, the pollution of that river that people just tend to forget how beautiful it can be and what the name of it or why people should care about it. When you really look at that sense of that name, it's actually very big. But not only that, him forgetting his name, what his true name is and everything, because Chihiro is the one that breaks that spell because she finds out what his real name is. And throughout the film, you also see Chihiro start losing her name. And now, mind you, that was Yubaba stealing her name and making her sin.
Hmm.
But throughout, that's why that card in the beginning of that film is so important because that's what he says. Keep that because that's the only way you're going to remember who you are. And then when you see that sense over the film, it's like a sense of like his own lost identity. He doesn't know who he was. And the fact
Hmm.
that both of them put a spell on him, even Yubaba had a spell on him. That's what was on around that little pennant, that little thing around that. That's what Chihiro smashes. And that's what I said. And having that transformation of turning into the dragon is kind of remembering who you are. It's a sense of remembering who you truly are as a person.
Yeah, it's the natural quality in them, right? Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I said. This film, like, let's talk about it, Pat. What would you say? I know we've talked about the characters. What would you say are scenes that you enjoyed in this film?
Well, that whole baby scene, I think, uh, the whole baby scene's
You better
definitely
play with me right now, or I'm
sticks
going to
out.
fall.
I love the ending of the movie. I think that's one I really enjoy with how there's that deceitfulness of like, oh, you were supposed to do this, but you didn't do it. Or just making her jump through all these hoops. And that's what I like about the movie in general is just how there's certain scenes that add up to the conclusion of this film, right? I I also like that intro scene with the parents. Just it gives it a good feel to the movie. What's nice about the first 15 minutes of this movie, it's very straight to the point. For the most part. I mean, there's stuff, obviously, this film is meant for you to interpret in the way you see it. You know what I mean? It's not telling you what this is supposed to be, what this is supposed to be, what that's supposed to be. But I do think within the first 10 to 15 minutes, you kind of get a feel of what the premise of what we're supposed to be doing. I mean, you get the point of, the parents are gone, they turn into pigs, which I think that whole, like I keep saying, the first 10 minutes where they get turned into the pigs because of the greed, and that's the kind of cool thing it's foreshadowing, right? Is them, eating all this food, the greed and selfishness and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, man, what do
Well,
you think about the conclusion of this movie or
so
that last like 10 minutes of it?
so when you have that moment with Zaniba and that last, like when she's like, well, what about Haku? What if this time's passed? What if this time's passed? And she's like, just wait a few more moments.
Yeah.
It's that sense of like, hey, you're growing up Don't forget who you truly are.
Yeah.
Having that moment, even with Yababa at the end where she's testing her to really see, okay, which one are your parents? And she finds out none of them are. That was a big scene because it's that confidence that she knows and she can do whatever she can. My favorite scene of that whole ending was when her and her parents are finally reunited. And it's that sense of, and it's a callback to the beginning of the film because, mind you, her parents and her are moving to the suburbs. They're moving and she's going to a new school. And you could tell she is not good with change. She is not good with anything that's happening. And then at the end, he goes, remember, we're going to start school up. And she goes, I think I can handle it. So it's a sense of a
Yeah.
call from beginning where she's like, no, 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 to now like, you know what? I can handle this. So it's a sense of maturing. It's a sense of now her confidence is up. And I think that's what, again, another reason I really see myself in Chihiro because it's that sense
Yeah.
of finding who you truly are. And I know I've had a huge issue with that over the years.
Well, I think like what you're with the whole finding who you truly are, I do think just this character alone and with the help of the parts that happen in this movie, I think it's the perfect depiction of what you're explaining, like of finding yourself and really just the development of who you can be at one point to who you can really turn into for the greater good, you know?
Right.
I think this movie is just a perfect, or that character is just a perfect depiction of that, you know?
Right. I think that's why I said it's such a great movie. Like rewatching it has made me really find more of an appreciation for the film
Yeah.
and having more of that now as an adult, more in watching it. I could see myself watching this more times. Like it's just a really good coming of age story. It is a really great story in representing that in full detail and seeing how one can truly find themselves and what will happen if you lose yourself along the way
Yeah.
and every way, like we said, every way that we've seen Yubaba, No Face, all these other people really show, you see what her life could be. And it is a really good scene. I really enjoy it. It's just a very powerful movie.
It is.
Like, let me ask you this. Do
Yeah.
you feel this movie should have won Best Picture? Or best, not Best Picture, but Best Animated Feature?
Wait, it won Best Animated Feature,
Well,
right?
that's what I mean. Do you feel this movie was deserving of it, of the Best
Yeah.
Animated Feature
What
award?
were what were the other nominees again for that?
Yeah. So the other nominees, let me
I know
pull.
I know Spirit was Spirit one of
Spirit
them?
was one of them. Treasure Planet, Ice Age, and there was another Disney one up for
And
grabs.
not to make it only more confusing earlier, like how I brought up Spirit and Spirited Away, they were nominated at the same Oscars. Talk
Yeah.
about talk about why I don't blame Patty B for being confused on that point.
So Spirit Away, Ice Age, Lilo and Stitch, Treasure Planet, and Spirit.
Wow, Lilo and Stitch, huh?
Well, that's what I said. Lilo and Stitch, I could understand. Treasure Planet is what got me go, what? Like that movie was so panned and it was nominated for Best Animated Feature.
I
I
uh
love that
I
movie.
also think you know, I think it's subjectable for something like this, especially for you got to think about for animated movies. Animated movies aren't typically made by the same like there's usually not a director that focuses more on animated films, I guess, or that's their specialty. And I think just with the catalog he had before this, I think it was deserving. I mean, look at everything that was before this, right? We talked about it. We talked
Princess
about
Mononoke. We've had
Grave
we
of the Fireflies.
well, the Grave of the Fireflies. Remember, like we said, Grave of the Fireflies was it was a Studio Ghibli film without being a Studio Ghibli film.
But he helped to write it, right?
Right.
Or
It was mainly the same crew that worked on that film.
that's what I'm
This
saying.
is
And that's what I
before.
was alluding to
Yeah.
was the same, the same director or the
Right.
same, writer and director or whatever. I just look at his catalog before this and just look at everything that they
Well,
accomplished. I mean, in their own country, just alone,
well,
everything.
like we said, you have My Neighbor Totoro, you have Castle in the Sky, you have Kiki's Delivery Service, you have Grave of the Fireflies is considered in that.
Is that Castle in the Sky or Howl's Moving Castle? Or is that it's
Yeah,
two different
two
movies?
different movies. Howl's Moving Castle was 2004.
But Castle in the Sky was
Was
before.
before. Castle in the Sky was one of their first big ones. That was 1986.
Yeah.
And then
I
you
think
also there's a whole bunch of movies here that when you really look at it, it just Ghibli does a really good way in getting at you
yeah.
and really teaching you life stories without you realizing you're learning life stories.
Hmm.
And Spirited Away is a big one.
And going back to it, I mean, I think if I didn't see this movie, when if I hadn't watched this movie yet, I would probably say like, oh yeah, Lilo and Stitch deserve it. No, I think Ice Age is another one you don't think of because this is the original Ice Age?
Yeah, the first Ice Age. Mhm.
Yeah, so I mean, I think
But
that was a pretty big movie
I
when
I wouldn't put it like if I chose out of this, to me, Spirited Away would be the one that won. I like Lilo and Stitch. Don't
I
get me
love
wrong,
Lilo and Stitch.
but I feel like this movie hit more.
It had a way deeper meaning, obviously. But let's just talk. I mean, we talked about it, but I mean, let's just even say like the time and artwork that was put into this.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, you just don't. I'm sorry, but like, I think first off, Ice Age is a completely different animated movie, right? That's like kind of like their version of Pixar. Or that's a DreamWorks movie. If
it
am
is a DreamWorks film. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's DreamWorks. That's a different type of animation. Um,
Well, like let's put it this way, Pat. This is not the only big award they won.
yeah.
It's one of only two animated films to ever receive the Japan Academy Prize for Picture of the Year. You want to take a shot? What the first one was?
The first one to what again? Say, repeat that one more time. No.
To the Japan Academy Prize for Picture of the Year. It's one of only two animated films to ever win this award.
Is it Akira? Is the other one Akira?
No, which is just shocking, but no, it's actually one we've talked about, and it's another Ghibli film.
Is it Grave of the Fireflies?
Yeah.
Or
It's one that we talked about that he almost retired after.
oh, Mononoke. Yeah.
First one to win it. Same, it was a product of the same crew. Both won that award.
Oh wow.
So to really see how this movie is really good, that's why I said it's one of the this movie not only, and I feel like this is a big part too, because remember when the movie won Best Animated Feature, it was the only non-English language film to ever win that.
Hmm.
Which, mind you, at the time it was only two. You had Shrek, and then you had that. But and it stayed that way till 2024.
Oh wow.
But you got to remember who was the second one to win it like that, and it's another Ghibli film,
Hmm.
Boy in the Heron. Now, mind you, over the years there have been other nominees. One of them we will be covering this month, Your Name,
Hmm.
but that's one that it was up against stiff competition at that point. That it was, I believe that was the same year. I want to say it was the same year as I think it was either the year of or the year before Into the Spider Verse came out.
Oh, okay. For a
So
second, I thought you were gonna say Ratatouille, and I'm like, nothing will
no,
be.
no, it was like 2015,
Yeah,
2016.
yeah, yeah.
I think it was
16.
2016.
I want to say that too. Maybe no, yeah, 16. Yeah, yeah, that sounds about
Yeah.
right.
Like this movie, like I said, now mind you, like we said, it was released in Japan first, but it came to the United States. Do you know who actually was in charge of helping with that?
With helping the,
With one, getting it to the United States, but two, who was in charge of it?
I don't know.
So I'll give you one hint. They gave you kind of a hint to in the movie to who kind of helped create or help put together like the English dub version of this film with a walking or a jumping lamp.
Oh, the guy from Pixar's?
John Lasseter,
John Lasseter, that's right.
guy who created Toy Story, helped put together the English version of this film. And when you really listen to what he he brings up some good points. Like he even like he says, there's several instances in the English dub version where the additional dialogue was actually added to the film. And when you talked to John Lasseter, he explained that it was necessary. It was a necessary addition to help clarify some aspects for American audiences. For example, what is a bathhouse to a Japanese viewer might not be apparent to an American viewer. So the translation issue was fixed by having the character explain, "Oh, it's a bathhouse."
Mm, I
So,
see.
so John Lasseter, mind you, he's credited for probably one of the biggest animated films ever created, which Toy Story. It's still up there for this, for good reason in this. But that's why I said, like, there's one last good point about this film, and then we'll go into what we rank it as and stuff.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about this, but the score.
Yeah. Well,
You know.
that's kind of a trend in a lot of his movies, right?
Well, this one I would fill over any. I would put this score. Now, mind you, it's by Joe Hisashi. This score is so memorable to me. I have to, if we ever did a list of top 10 scores, this would be up on my list. I remember being so enthralled by the music. It was that first song too, like when they're driving in the car, it's just so enthralling and so emotional. And then you hear it near the end of the movie again, and it's like, oh, it's coming back to the beginning again. It's that sense of it's just a really beautifully well done music song. It's really well done throughout. And again, like you said, this is not the only film that the score is important in the film, but this, like to me, peaks that chart when it comes to Studio Ghibli films. This music is by far one of my favorite music. Like it just like I have it in my personal playlist when I'm listening to music. It's just so relaxing, so melancholy. It's just very peaceful, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
At points. Because then you have the monster scene. It's like, yeah, that's not always the most peaceful song, but it's still so well done. Like, what was your take on the score before we kind of jump into our final thoughts?
Yeah, I think it just has it sets a really good tone for the movie, right? Like it just the way it blends in with scenes. I mean, that's what makes a good score, I think. Though if the music alone can help elevate the movie or even help kind of explain it in a different way, just give it that different understanding of what they're trying to get across. I think it's just beautiful. You know, I think was it is it Howl's Moving Castle? I know it's after, right? Howl's Moving Castle was
It's
after.
2004. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. There was a song. It's like one of my favorite like little jingles from his movies. But I
Ponyo's good music. I know
Ponyo's got great
Mononoke's
music.
got,
Yeah.
yeah, Mononoke's got some great music.
Even Kiki's. I think Kiki's. We'll
Kiki's
talk.
underrated. Like I will give it props there. Kiki's music is very underrated.
Yeah, yeah.
The Boy and the Heron's now becoming more what I enjoy too. There's
So
one I would
does
always.
and I don't have it in front of me, but does he use the same composer on a lot of his stuff?
I don't think so.
Dude, could you imagine a Hans Zimmer collaboration?
No, Hans Zimmer. I don't. I
No.
don't like. I'm not being mean. Like Hans Zimmer has a style,
Yeah.
and I think it's kind of like how we say, like when you think of Spielberg, you think of
Hans Zimmer's kind of epic.
yeah, like Hans Zimmer. It's not so much epic, but it's just he has his own style of music, and I don't feel like it would match something like Ghibli would put out.
I don't know. I think he's definitely got a wide range of
I'm
different
not, and I'm not saying that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mind you, he composed one of his
Days
best
of
scores with The
he
Lion King.
composed Days of Thunder and Interstellar.
Oh, you're not. You're no. I would not like if you gave me those two scores. I would say absolutely
Well,
not.
no, I'm just telling you, like, I'm not saying that Days of Thunder is a great score. I'm just saying that, like, that's the range. Like, Days of Thunder, think of the movie Days of Thunder. It's Top Gun on wheels, basically. Go check that out, by the way, folks. And then you got Interstellar, which is probably one of his best scores of all time. Like, so I'm just saying, like, he's got a wide range. I think it'd be doable, but that's neither here or there. There's all kinds of. I mean, what is it?
So
We
it
talk.
actually is. So you do have a point. So the guy who actually does Joe Hisashi, who did the score for Spirited Away, also did the score for Howl's Moving Castle.
Okay.
Now, something unique about the score too, and I want to bring this point up here too, is the song over the closing credits. The closing credits song was
Mhm.
intended for another Miyazaki film that was never made. And Miyazaki played it relentlessly while making this film and decided to include it in the end credits. So again, like Hisashi is a really good composer. The only other person I could ever see it, and I know like you have to have like a certain tone when you do these movies. Only other person I could maybe put up there is Tan Dunn. Now you probably won't know him by heart, but this is the guy who composed Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. The style of his music I feel would fits Ghibli so well. But again, it's I just when you think of Hans Zimmer, I don't think of him in that aspect. Like he's more action packed. He is more things like that. Like you could go with like how he does Inception, but even then, is that good enough? Like like the only person who I got a question for you, and I'm curious to see who mainly scores Anderson's films.
He's had a couple of people. I know Mark Mothersbaugh did like the first three movies.
Who did the Grand Budapest Hotel?
Uh, the same guy that did, I think it's Alexandra Duplat or something like that.
Yes, I can see him doing something
That's
like that.
plot. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I yeah, I
I'm
know
not
who you're
looking it
talking
up,
about.
but I didn't look it up, but off the top of my head, I think it's
How
like
dare you not know French? No, I'm just messing.
Alex.
But I could see him doing a Ghibli film. Just that wittiness and the way he does Grand Budapest Hotel, I think would work so well for the film like that.
Yeah.
But it had to be a fast-paced Ghibli film. It couldn't be like Spirit Away or different movies like that where it's more slow pace and you're learning the characters and stuff. That's why I said like I feel like it was criminal that he did not win best score. I think
Yeah.
he was nominated, but you got to remember that year was tough competition anyway because that's Howard Shore's Lord of the Rings time frame. That is, I forgot it was they did not win Two Towers score. I forgot who won that year for score,
What
but
year did it with Towers O2?
yeah, it was the '02 one because '01 he won for best score. Howard Shore did, and he won for '03 for Return of the King, but he did not win for the Two Towers. I want to say it was the movie with about Salma Hayek in it. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it's about Frida, the picture.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember the name of the movie.
It's Frida. It's called
But it's
Frida.
just Frida.
It's
I
just
think
Frida, yeah.
I think it was him who
It
won.
is Frida. You did get it right. Look at
It
that.
was. I would say I think it was,
It is.
but that's why I said
75th Academy Awards. Elliot Goldenthal.
like I feel like that score should have been up there. If not, if it wasn't, like it should have won. Like this score was just phenomenal throughout the film. And it tells the story without having to tell the story.
Oh
It's
wow, he did Across the Universe. Like he helped with the music on the that's the same guy who did Frida. That's what I'm talking. Sorry. Just pull. Okay, you
you're
know what
making
other
me not like him more.
do you know what other score he did? SWAT.
Let's go into our rankings of the film. Pat, how would you rank this on a scale of 1 to 10 spirits?
One ten spirit. That's pretty good. I think I'm gonna give this, and this is kind of whatever. I'm gonna give this movie a 6.6.
Wow.
Great.
You hurt
Uh,
my feelings there a little bit.
what's that?
You hurt my feelings there a little bit.
I feel like I knew I was going to. I just don't. This movie isn't rewatchable for me. I think that's one of the main reasons. I know you're giving me a big frown. I think these movies gravitate towards different people, and there's other movies of his or other Ghibli movies that I just love, and this just this one's just it's good, don't get me wrong. I love the meaning behind it. I love what they're trying to do. But for me, it's just not something I can put on and be like, "Oh yeah, Spirited Away, let's watch it." Like I'm just not gonna go out of my way to watch it.
Let me ask you this before I give my ranking. If you did a list of top five Studio Ghibli films, would this make your top five?
It would either be five or honorable mention.
Wow. Hurt my feelings even more.
I don't know. I like Ponyo. I like Ponyo more than this movie.
See, I like Ponyo, but I wouldn't put it over Spirit Away.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I like Mononoke. I think when you
Mononoke was one I would rank over Spirit Away
yeah,
because I like Mononoke.
you got me into Mononoke. You told me about Mononoke and I watched Mononoke and I was like, okay, okay, I
Like
like this.
this movie is Mononoke is really good. But
Plus I was in once I heard the voice of Billy Bob Thornton, I was like, okay, for sure.
like my five, if I had to choose like that, I probably would go Spirit Away would be up there in no particular order. Spirit Away would be up there. Mononoke would be up there. Castle in the Sky would be up there. Howl's Moving Castle would be up there, and Boy and the Heron would be up there.
Yeah.
Like those five. Like another good one is The Wind Rises, which would just like it'd be in competition with. I'd probably say Howl's Moving Castle for me,
Hmm.
just because I like The Wind Rises and I think it's a really good story. But that's why I said. But those would be like my top five, like
Yeah.
around that
I
range.
mean, I think you got for me, I got Spirited Away. I got Ponyo. I do like Howl's Moving Castle.
Howl's
Uh,
Moving Castle's good. Mhm. And
Howl's
that's
Moving,
what's on my list too. But that's why I said it's a good movie.
yeah, Howl's
But
Moving Castle, Mononoke, and then of course Kiki's. I don't
as I
think
say, yeah, like you can't.
I got a soft spot in my heart for Kiki's.
Yeah, I figured my ranking's gonna be an 8.9. Rewatching it again, I really did enjoy it. If I watched this about a few years ago, I'd probably, or like when I was younger again in grade day, I probably would have given it like a 7.5, 7.8. Now rewatching it as an adult and understanding the story more, you can't sit there and not think you would be behind Chihiro.
Yeah.
That,
Well,
that
that's another thing I alluded to earlier. I think if I would have saw this when I was younger, I probably would have had a better. This probably would have been rated a little bit higher, in my opinion. I just think because of that, and for the reasons I just said a few minutes ago, I just think for me, I think I personally, for me, the way I watch movies and I the kind of movies I like, I think it's perfect for me. But like I said, I don't let my rating take away from anything that this film
yeah,
has.
don't listen to Patrick.
Don't listen to me because guess what? I just started watching anime recently because
He's a POS. No.
I'm a POS. I'm behind. Let's just say that. Uh, I'm sheltered. No,
Shut
I
up.
all thankfully all the recommendations you have told me anime wise have been great so far. So I mean, Kira really just blew my mind.
Man.
But yeah, man, I'm in the process. I'm gonna be checking out Perfect Blue. I think in the
Oh,
next.
that's one of them we are covering
I
soon.
know we're gonna.
I'm excited
I
for
know. I'm excited
it.
about it. I've been told by another outside source that it's a really good movie.
It is.
I'm gonna go into it not looking up what it's about. I'm just gonna
When Ty
watch
and
it.
I helped you put this list together, that was our intentions, was to
Yeah,
make you understand that there are different types of anime film. And I think that
yeah, there are, dude. Like I said, Akira blew my mind. I think that's what made me be like, oh, okay,
yeah,
yeah. It's not all sunshine and rainbows over
no,
here.
it is not. But
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 yeah,
as always, fans, we gotta torture Patrick at the end of the episode with a little bit of trivia challenge time.
fuck me.
No, I will not.
That will not be on air, sir.
Let's put it this way. Usually I have five questions. I'm gonna torture him with one more question. I've got six for him this episode. Since you wanted to give it a six rating, I'm gonna give you six questions. Yeah, punk. Uh, we're gonna start off easy as always, and we're gonna go into harder questions.
Watch, they're all gonna be
I
how
have a,
many
I have a number question on here, so just be prepared. I do have a number
how
question.
many legs does Kamaji have?
I almost chose that one, but I
Oh
did
my
not.
gosh, dude, get out of here with that.
It's
All
not
right.
that hard. Okay. Your
Hold
first
on, hold
one.
on, hold on. I gotta mentally prepare myself for this. All right.
You good? All right. Here's your first one. What is the name Yubaba gives Chihiro? The three-letter name,
Three-letter name.
and it starts with an S.
I was gonna say kid, but
No,
nope. Uh,
Sin.
sin.
Sin. Mhm.
It was right there on the tip of my tongue. I was about to say that. That was actually my next guess.
Okay, here's your next question. And it's about Kamagi. What will happen to the suit sprites, the little creatures that are helping them,
Yeah.
if they refuse to work?
Don't they don't they just go away? Don't they dissipate?
No, there's something he says in particular. I won't get you like if you don't get it exactly correct, but if you get the general answer, I'll give it to you.
I
It's
don't.
not so much that he gets it away, but there's something that happens to him.
Do they turn into something else?
You're close.
Oof. I don't know. I'm gonna
They'll
see.
turn back to soot.
Soot. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, I remember them saying that now. I'm gonna turn you into soot.
Okay,
Right?
here's
That's what you're talking. That's what you're
yep.
alluding to, right? When he says that.
They'll
I
turn
remember
back
them
into
saying
soot.
that. Yeah, I'm gonna turn you into soot.
Okay, here's your next question.
Uh,
What color are the flowers that Chihiro is holding at the beginning of the movie? What color are the flowers that Chihiro is holding at the beginning of the movie?
I'll go ahead and say yellow.
No. Try a different color. It's gonna sound so obvious when you hear it. What's it?
Red.
You're close. I'll give you one more chance.
Oh,
You're closer with red than you were with yellow. Think of another color that you would see with flowers or you would put with flowers.
purple.
Try your other P color. It's pink.
Pink. Oh my gosh. I was thinking like yeah, maybe because it's springtime. I'm all thinking like, oh, yellow, purple,
Pink, man.
pink. I guess that's a spring color.
All right, here's your next question. How many characters tasted or ate the cake from the river spirit that Chihiro obtains? That little ball that she got from the river spirit when she helps out that mud monster and then comes out to be a river spirit. That little ball she finds is a medicine kind of ball, like a medicine. How many of them eat it or taste it? It's going to sound obvious when you hear it. You're overthinking.
I know. I always overthink these. I'm gonna go ahead and say three.
You are correct.
Oh, let's fucking go.
It is three. Do you know who?
No, you never. Let's not
Okay.
add side quests to these questions.
Chihiro does herself because she
Okay.
tastes it and then, like that's when she gets all sick with Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
She gives it to Haku.
Mm-hmm.
She gives it to No Face. That's what makes No Face start getting sick the way he is.
Okay.
Remember, she says, I want you to eat this. And then she pops in his mouth, and that's when he starts throwing up and all that.
Okay.
Okay, here's your second to last question. What is Haku's real name?
Um.
This is your second to hardest question. Like, your
Well,
is
I
like,
feel like this is kind of cheating only because I did have the character list up behind
go ahead
this.
and say it.
You know what? Actually, that's in my favor because I had it up way before you asked this
Yeah.
question. It is you said Haku, right?
Yep.
Is it Miyu Areno?
No.
Oh, that's the person that voices it. Darn it. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. I get redemption here. I get redemption.
I love how you get. You know who voices him, right? In the American, the guy who voices Max in the Goofy movie.
Tim Sander.
No, Jason Marsden.
Oh, okay.
That's who voices him. But I've already said it in the episode. It's the
Spirit of
Kahaku River.
Spirit. Oh, okay. Well, so I was reading off the actual name. It
No, no, you're not
like,
gonna get.
it translates to the spirit of the Kahaku River. I don't want to hear it. I got that right.
Kahaku
Fans,
River.
fans, I got a point. Cheer.
That helps you go to sleep at night.
It does. I'm gonna sleep like
Here's well, because after this one, I know you're gonna hate me for doing this, but I'm going to ask the question. This is your last question. What is the name of the spirit that Lin and Chihiro encounter in the elevator on the way to see Yubaba? It's the big white spirit that they come across. They has a name. Lin says
it's like a vegetable, isn't it?
it. It is.
It is. I know. I know. It's one of my favorite vegetables.
What is it?
You get these at the taco truck, don't you?
I'm not going to say anymore. If it's your favorite vegetable, then you'll know.
No, it's a radish spirit.
It is the radish spirit. Okay, you got 2 out of 6.
I
Okay.
got three out of. I was.
I ain't giving you that one.
It was like Bon Jovi. I was halfway there, and guess what? I was living on a prayer. Take my hand. We'll make it. I swear.
And you weren't want it dead or alive either.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Sorry. Brandon used to
You
watch anime.
and guess what? You give love a bad name. Anyway, not the point. but
Now I'm
but
trying to. Now I'm trying to
you're not gonna
incorporate
get
other
another
Bon Jovi songs.
You're not gonna get any more on me, buddy.
Yeah, yeah. All I'm thinking is that one he did. Since he can't go on, who says you never you it's
Yeah.
he did it with somebody else. It's not like
Yeah, but that don't count, man.
yeah, it does count. It's a Bon Jovi song. Anyway, whatever. Let's get this wrapped up for these fans. So I gotta listen to your Bon Jovi.
Yeah, what's not? You were the one that started singing Bon Jovi. Nobody was
I
asking
don't
for it.
hear it. Yeah.
If I want to go listen to Bon Jovi, I'll go listen to Bon Jovi. And not the point, but fans, thank you guys for listening to our episode of Spirited Away. Let us know in the comments what your favorite part of Spirited Away is. Where will you rank it on 1 to 10 spirits? What do you think about Chihiro? What do you feel about the meanings of the story?
I love the spirit meter.
Yeah, I agree. I almost said the gold nuggets, but I said no.
No, the spirit meter
But
works.
but even then too, let us know what you guys think about if this is a movie that you feel deserved to win best animated feature.
Is it rewatchable? That's what
Yeah, let us know that in the comments
am I
too.
crazy for thinking that?
Yes, because it's still a great movie.
Yeah, you could say.
But fans, as always, thank you guys for listening. Check us out, J4F Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And also check us out on YouTube and Spotify. Remember to like this video if you like this content and you want more of it. Let us know in the comments. Share this video. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that bell notification so you never miss an episode. Without further ado, I turn it over to Patty B to take us out.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. B Dog, as always. And remember, we do it just for flicks.